first AEW champion. And
Check out All Elite Podcast.
We are the Lucha Brothers, and you listen All Elite Podcast. You know why?
Saturday,
Hey, this is Cole Cabana. Check out the All Elite Podcast. All Elite.
This is Sammy Guevara, the best ever. And you, yes, you, need to go check out All Elite Podcast.
What's up, man? It's the Afro Machinist Wolverine, Mr. GMSI himself, the man with the huge effing arms, Brian Cage. You're watching the All Elite Podcast. Who better?
And we are back, All Elite family, for yet another exciting edition of the All Elite Podcast. As always, I am your host, All Elite Andy, and I'm joined by my boy, my co-host, my friend, AJ Fitzgerald. How you doing, AJ?
I'm doing good, man. Everything's been copacetic. I'm really excited for tomorrow's show, though.
I am super stoked for tomorrow's show. That's why we decided to bring you the hype show, the pre-show Full Gear prediction extravaganza today on Friday. It makes so much more sense to give people a little bit of time to hear what we have to say about the pay-per-view. But we didn't want to do a 2-hour show with our Dynamite recap yesterday. We decided we would break things in half and come to you live today or via Spotify, however you consume the podcast, to talk about Full Gear. I'm super excited to talk about it, though, AJ, because there's honestly a lot to talk about with this card. That's why I think it was a smart idea to break things in half, because it's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, it's a stacked card. One of the more stacked pay-per-view cards in a while, I think.
Oh, absolutely, dude. It is, without a doubt, one of the better pay-per-view cards in all of wrestling, I would say, in a while. Not just AEW, but they have absolutely went out of their way to provide a really solid card. I think that there are some things that maybe leave a bit to be desired, but the fact that it is so stacked in terms of dream match quality matches, that I have no complaints whatsoever about this card, and I'm so excited. Our boy Joseph, Big Joseph, is even going to be tuned into this pay-per-view. I know it for a fact, because it's just one of those pay-per-views that you can't miss it.
Yeah. I mean, there's the two huge matches aside, it's still a really good card. The two being Kenny and Hangman and FTR versus the Young Bucks. Even discarding that, it's a really good card. So I don't know. I think everything on this card looks great, and I can't wait to get into it.
Let's get right into it, man. This match that we're about to talk to is one I'm not even super familiar with, but it being added to the card adds a lot of excitement for me, especially the buy-in pre-show. The match I'm talking about, of course, is the NWA Women's World Championship match. We have Serena Deeb defending the title against Allison Kay. Serena Deeb, obviously an AEW contracted talent, but she recently won the title from Thunder Rosa, had a successful defense on a recent episode of Dynamite, so she's facing a formidable opponent in Allison Kay. I don't think she's going to be the one to dethrone Deeb, but I think this is a great spot to really showcase Serena Deeb and even Allison Kay and the NWA Women's World title in a positive way. I think this is a great relationship for AEW. So what are your thoughts on this match, man?
I am excited for it, not because I think Serena Deeb is going to lose, but more so because there's two women's matches on the card. Hey, new record. No, but seriously, it's a good addition. It's a good way to keep the NWA relationship strong. It's a good way to put Serena Deeb out there, get her more defenses, so that if she does have a match with whoever is the women's champion of AEW, it's more important. Maybe even do a double championship match. That would be dope.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I think promoting this title and promoting Serena Deeb as the champion is a good move, especially because she is signed with AEW, not the NWA.
Exactly. It just sort of elevates Deeb, if nothing else. You know what I mean? Because she is part of the company, but she's a champion as part of another company. And so it shows that she's the cream of the crop somewhere and should be taken seriously within AEW as well. So a defense here will make sense. I would anticipate some type of champion versus champion match, potentially even against Nyla. We'll talk about that championship match later on in the show, but I think that Serena Deeb being focused on here as the NWA Women's World Champion, focusing on the relationship with the NWA, helping your fans become more familiar with that company, is such a fantastic thing. It's honestly kind of foreign to me as a fan of professional wrestling, of just WWE for the longest time, because getting to see another company being showcased within AEW is just a lot of fun to me, honestly. It could almost be any two competitors, so I like it. It creates
totally
so much
agree with that.
opportunity for the company to just do different, exciting things. So
I mean, you haven't really, in recent years, seen a lot of company relationships, so it's really cool to see.
Yeah, and that's exactly
I
it.
guess
The Ring
ROH
of
and
Honor
New
and New
Japan, but
Japan
that's
for
about
sure,
it.
but yeah, this one on just a U.S. scale between two U.S. companies, it really NWA has that history there, so it kind of does help both sides. It's a good relationship, and I like to see it, especially focused on with the women's division, which could use a lot of help right now. So, solid move. And I like that it's being put on the pre-show because it does to an extent elevate the pre-show. I don't feel like there's anything wrong with having this women's title match on the pre-show, the other women's title match on your main show. I don't feel like there's any devaluing or anything going on there either. So it's a smart move overall.
Yeah.
We also have Orange Cassidy versus John Silver. I believe this has been pulled off of the pre-show, put into more of a main card match, which is exciting. But I'm a little bit bitter about that because I had liked where we were going in promoting some of these higher level superstars, but putting them on a pre-show. We talked about it with Britt Baker in the past, but I think that there was a reason behind this, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure about that, but this is news to me. But whether it's on the pre-show or not, it's an interesting match. It should be good. John Silver is actually really good, and he's tiny, but so is Orange Cassidy. It's fine. But
Well, it gives
he's
a
a
good
strong,
shot.
tiny dude.
Yeah, it gives a great opportunity for Orange Cassidy just to sort of squash someone. And I don't even necessarily anticipate it to be all of that, but I think, so what I was alluding to, I'm not totally sure. I just sort of saw something on Twitter earlier, but weren't they pushing that Scorpio Sky match to the pay-per-view at some point? I feel like that might have been a thing, or it was put...
I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that, but it's possible.
Well, so I know that Scorpio Sky was on social media talking about how he had come in contact with someone who tested positive for COVID-19. I believe he hasn't, but still has to go through the process. So if that match was either scheduled for the pay-per-view, or it might have even been Dynamite if I'm not mistaken.
It was Dynamite.
Yeah, and then they just didn't have it, right? So maybe they had planned to push it off to the pay-per-view. I just am interested here, this match being pushed onto the main card, Orange Cassidy and John Silver. I think it was a fine pre-show match, so maybe it's just they wanted to do the women's world title match and they only have time for one.
Yeah, and as far as the prediction goes, obviously Orange Cassidy. If John Silver wins, that'd be bananas and stupid. But because the whole point is, like you were saying, get top guys on the opener, and you'll have, I think, a good experience, a good way to get people to tune in, a good way to get people to maybe buy the show. So yeah, smart move.
Well, and like I said, this one's not the pre-show. This match, Orange Cassidy and John Silver.
Ideally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's going to be a solid match regardless. I think that John Silver is a solid talent, and Orange Cassidy, I'm with you there. He's my pick to win this one. Kind of simple. This next one might be a bit of a toss-up, though. Matt Hardy versus Sammy G in an Elite Deletion match. They have been building this match up for quite a few months. Obviously, the match that happened at All Out is one of the low points in the whole feud, with Matt Hardy being injured and the match having to get ended quickly. Hopefully this one can work out and be much better. I anticipate if this is some type of final deletion match, it's going to be extremely exciting. So I'm hyped for it, but I don't necessarily know who I'd pick to win.
I would probably pick Matt, like, gun to my head, because I feel like he needs to look good because he's coming off of so many, just, he got thrown off and got a concussion or whatever, and then, the chair to begin with, and everything he's gone through. I think he needs to look good because he's not been looking good. And Sammy honestly has. Like, he's fine. Sammy isn't going to get negatively affected if he loses one match with Matt Hardy, in my opinion. And it doesn't even have to... I'm guessing this is going to be the bow on the feud. They're going to wrap it up here, but
we thought that
don't know.
Last time. Shoot.
Yeah. But it's the Elite Deletion. That's the only reason it leads me to believe maybe it is, but we'll see.
And either way, I think it should elevate both of these guys and should do a lot for both of them. So to be done with it and sort of go their separate ways, because I think the feud has run its course. This is a good way to cap it off with something a little bit maybe more cinematic, more exciting, and then let each guy go on to do their own thing. So. Also on the card, we have Chris Jericho taking on MJF. This match has kind of been thrown together over the last couple weeks, but they have planned it out, obviously, because they've been building it up. But within the last 2 weeks, Jericho essentially told MJF, hey, you want to be in the inner circle? You got to beat me in a match. And that's been the build to this match. I think it's an interesting way to do this feud as well, because akin to what we've talked about with Hangman Page and Kenny Omega, it's another feud, or match I should say, that they're doing without having to have these two turn on each other. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, it's a really smart way to go about this. And I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if MJF is going to win and get in the inner circle, or if something's going to happen with maybe Wardlow, or I don't know. There's a lot of options, a lot of ways they could go about this. I'm kind of expecting, though, as far as my prediction goes, is for MJF to win. And, things just kind of start maybe not unraveling, but like kind of getting shaky with the inner circle. And I don't know. I'm expecting Chris Jericho face turn still, I should say. So I'm probably expecting MJF to get into the inner circle.
And I don't even know if I would agree with that at this point, with
I don't know
MJF
either.
attacking him the way he did and Jericho reacting the way he did. I almost wonder if this is going to more so set up a situation for Sammy G to turn face and maybe be elevated down the line with a feud with MJF while MJF stays within the inner circle. And that could totally be off there, but I think that it might not be as simple as we thought it was. I think this is just the beginning of something that's going to be the next drawn out feud, which I'm excited about, and I'm almost glad because we're getting the match early on in the feud still.
Yeah.
Because even if Jericho does turn, I don't think it'll happen very quick. I think that MJF will win. He will be a part of the inner circle, and then they will go from there. Or maybe even he loses and still gets in the inner circle because he performs so well.
Yeah, maybe. And I wouldn't pull anything past them, honestly. Like, this has a lot of potential also to be a really good match. That's the other aspect of this. Like, storyline aside, just MJF versus Chris Jericho is a dope match. Like, that's going to be a banger. So, no doubt about it. I'm definitely excited for this one.
And Jericho should make MJF look like $1 million. So, in terms of predictions, I'm going to have to go with the idea that I think MJF is going to win. I definitely do expect him to get into the inner circle. I think that Jericho could win and still invite him into the group. Seems a little bit of a strange way to do it to me, though. So that's my pick. And going back, just before we go to the next match, I'm going to say that Sammy G is winning that Elite Deletion match. I don't know if I gave my official prediction on that one. So
No, you didn't, but...
Hey, there you go. You got it. Sammy G's picking up
now.
the win there. Let's talk about the AEW Women's World Championship match with Hikaru Shida defending against Nyla Rose. They have gone back to this match, which makes sense because the women's division isn't super strong. But Shida has had a really nice run. I kind of expect it to come to a close here now that we have a little bit more depth to the face side of the women's roster. I think it might be a solid move. Nyla Rose being the first two-time champion in AEW is also a decent move. So what do you think?
Honestly, I disagree. I think this is gonna solidify Hikaru and make her have a champion versus champion match with Deeb. Because I feel like Hikaru has really kind of been... I'm not saying Nyla can't, but Hikaru has been carrying a lot of these matches and has been putting on really good matches. And when you, like you said, the division is better, but it's still not the best. And so... you might want to consider keeping the belt on Hikaru for longer. And so I'm going to go with Hikaru. Just
we
because
got our
of that.
first split, you know what I mean? Because I'm pretty strongly against you in this one. I agree with what you're saying, and I like a lot of what you're saying, and I almost feel like the right thing they should do is, Hikaru should win. She's kind of carried this division. She should be the one to go on and have that champion versus champion match. But I feel like beating Nyla here, it sets Nyla back again, and they really didn't bring her much forward from the last time she got set back.
That's true.
She lost the title. I don't necessarily remember if she got an immediate rematch. This might be the rematch, as far as I can remember. And so because of that, she was in the tag team tournament, didn't do much in that, hasn't done a whole lot, probably won a couple of matches on Dark, which is solid, but, this is the opportunity to reignite Nyla, put her as the top of the division, and so that's why I'm leaning on that side, but I do agree with you that there's a lot more reasons to keep the title on Hikaru. I just think that they have a little bit more depth in terms of people that Nyla can work with and work with well, that they can now be comfortable with her having another run. So,
yeah.
But we'll see. This next match that we got to talk about is the AEW TNT Championship match, Cody Rhodes versus Darby Allin. This is going to be a little bit of a difficult one for me to call, I think, going back to the fact that these two kind of have a decent rivalry. It's not necessarily a feud because they're not going back and forth every week and not necessarily trading shots, but they definitely have a bit of a rivalry going back. What was it, a year that they had, or maybe even more than a year now that they've had that match?
I think if I recall, they've had one match that was non-title, one match that was for the title, and now they're going to have this one, and Darby Allin has lost both of those.
Well, I think the first Darby match was the draw.
That was the first
draw in AEW and that was really great. Well done. You're right, though. They did do the rematch, or not necessarily a rematch, but the second match for the title, which Darby lost. And now we get this one. I'm excited for it. I think it's a really interesting match. I think Darby could get his first AEW championship win, but I'm not necessarily anticipating it because I prefer Cody establishing it as a legitimate top title. I'm
really torn on it, like, because of that. Because like he's calling it the Ace belt, he's calling himself the Ace. You're building him up so much, but at the same time, I feel like it also is time for Darby to get his win over Cody. And if you're going to pull that trigger, pull it now. But where does that leave Cody? I don't know. I'm going to just guess, and I'm going to say Darby personally.
Cool. And again, another split because it's hard for me to go against Cody right here. Mostly because I don't want to, because I do want to see this title elevated to that point where it feels almost like the Intercontinental title in New Japan, where it's just second, but by only a hair. And I think that putting it on Darby doesn't necessarily devalue it. It just halts the progress it's at. Darby, It's very hard for Darby to add more prestige to that. It does add a lot more to Darby than I think Darby adds to it in terms of the other way around with Cody in the championship. And in a way, that's what titles are supposed to do, so I wouldn't even be mad about it. And kudos to Cody for making this title in a position where it can do that to stars like Darby, because Darby's no slouch, man. It's not like he's a jobber and the title's going to make him a star. He's been elevated on his own, and the title will help elevate his stardom a little bit more. But I just think that Cody elevating that title right now is a little bit more important to me, so that's what I would like to see. I think this is going to be a fun match. I think it's going to be great.
Oh, yeah.
I think they've done a good job at putting over this belt, putting over Darby, and the match should be a lot of fun. It should be a very interesting one. We could see Cage and them get involved in this one. They have history with kind of both these guys. Anticipate them attacking Cody after the match, because then they could also attack Darby. But that's all getting off into a bit of a tangent there. But nonetheless, the match itself, I think, is going to be very, very good.
I totally agree. It's going to be a fantastic match. These two have always brought it, always have good matches. I guess their last one, the finish was weird. It was the one where he did the coffin drop and he got him in a pin.
Yes.
And that was like, people were like, oh, did they mean to do that? Or what was the intention? And yeah, me too. So I expect we had a draw. We had kind of a confusing finish. I expect a clean finish. So if FTW do show up, I feel like Team Taz or whatever, it's going to be an after the match, like you said.
Yep, and this is just kind of the one spot where I feel like it makes the most sense for them to show up and sort of tear shit up. So I do anticipate that coming here. But like I said, I'm going with Cody in this one. We talked about that being a great match. This next match has the potential to steal the show. It's going to be a phenomenal match. Obviously, Kenny Omega versus Hangman Adam Page in the AEW World Title Eliminator Finals. So they built up this tournament over the last couple weeks, maybe even a month or so. We knew what the final was going to be, but as I said, the tournament storyline was the best way to do this storyline between these two. They don't have to turn on each other. They don't have to be at odds necessarily. They're obviously still not best friends, but there's still a chance of them both being good guys, neither one turning on each other, both helping out the Young Bucks during the week. So a lot of good things going on with this feud that I could never be mad that the tournament finals is ending up being the two top singles. Like, it honestly is beautiful booking. So
yeah.
What are you thinking?
No, definitely. It's hard. I'm just gonna pick who I want to win. Hangman. I want Hangman to win because Hangman's cool and he's a cowboy and he's awesome, and that's why. Because this is gonna be a great match. I don't have to go on about how this is gonna be a good match because it's gonna be a fucking fantastic match.
Insane, and probably
I mean, it could be a draw for all I know. I don't know what's gonna happen and fuck, but it's gonna be fucking crazy, and I'm so ready for this.
And the fun thing is too, they've both like it's elevated to a point where Hangman feels like he could be a legitimate contender. You know what I mean? Maybe he's not necessarily Kenny Omega still. He's still a little bit below, but compared to where he was a year ago, man, this is incredible. And to see the growth continue happening and these two going from tag team to now the two final guys in the tournament, it just makes so much sense to me. I love the story of it all. That's what really gets me into it. And I'm there with you and saying if I got to pick, I'm going to pick the guy I want to win, that being Hangman, because I like Kenny, and Kenny makes more sense to me in terms of like booking and all that, but the storyline and everything, I'm a Hangman fan. And that's not to say I hate Kenny. It's just to say Hangman has won me over big time, and I'm so glad they didn't have to turn him heel to do it. And I think the match is going to steal the show. And it's going to lead to the best AEW world title feud we've had yet, without a question. Because they have now built up a insanely strong contender, set to probably go up against Moxley, who has been an insanely strong champion. It's beautiful makings right here, and that's why if I had to pick, like literally gun to my head, I'd probably say Omega. But in terms of who I want to win, it's Hangman, because it's just a great situation for Hangman right now. But I do think him not winning is fine, because they just will continue to build him up over the next however long, and maybe the feud ends up being him versus Kenny for the title. So I'm not mad at any of it, and either one could win, and I will be excited for what's coming next. So this is probably the most exciting thing on the card for me, and the most exciting thing AEW's probably done in general, because these are my favorite guys, and that's akin to what they've done. So,
yep, absolutely. This is probably the most hyped I've been for an AEW match, I think.
Yeah, and that's what makes me excited to tune into it on Saturday. Like the hype in our group chat that's going to be for that match. This is the match that pulls out some of our non-wrestling fans to really tune into a match, because there's been so much build that they can't even deny it. You know what I mean? And that's not, I'm not talking about the real world and like mainstream media. I'm just talking about people we know, because we talk about wrestling so much that when they hear about this match, they're like, yeah, we got to tune in. They might just be WWE fans or something, but this is the one that pulls people in because there's so much hype for it. So, but that's not the only one on the card that does this. The AEW Tag Team Championship match with FTR defending the titles against the Young Bucks. Dude, talk about another one. And even the key part to this story is the Bucks are saying that they won't challenge for the tag titles again if they lose. Bigger key part to that story is Matt Jackson is injured. Is Matt Jackson really going to win the tag team titles injured, where they're saying he might not even have been able to compete at the pay-per-view? They're going to give him a title run? Seems crazy to me, but are they really going to not be challenging for the titles ever again the same way Cody did? Seems crazy to me. It's like, man, between those two things, I don't even know. And that's even before we talk about how good these two teams are, and it's a dream match, literally.
Yeah, like, this match has been a slow burn because people have been talking about this match while FTR were still in WWE.
For like 5 years.
Yeah, like, this has been a long time coming. This is what everybody's wanted to see. Like, barring the New Day and the Young Bucks, I think everybody, this is their match. And so it's finally happening. I mean, goddamn.
And it, honestly, like, they didn't even have to do much to build it up. I'm not going to pretend like the build to this one is even half as good as Kenny versus Hangman, but that's because, like you said, it's been 5 years in the making. They've been building it before they were ever even in the same company. So that when it did come, they didn't have to do much, and they even let it slowly come together within AEW. This is FTR's second or third pay-per-view, so they've been with the company for a while now. Yeah. They're getting a chance to defend the titles against the Bucks. Like, this is a really solid matchup here, and a great feud that I don't even know that we could say much more about it, because it's been so long in the making that for it to finally happen, it's just going to be one of those ones where we're on the edge of our seat ready for it to go. Mm-hmm. And I wonder how they're gonna pace this card out. Honestly, thinking about it.
Yeah, I have no fucking clue.
The Hangman versus Kenny match.
Probably a cinematic match in there with the Elite Deletion.
The two title matches. Like, we're gonna be feeling some excitement tomorrow, man. And that's just a cool thought to even have. So and again, it's with these dream matches that they made us wait for, and it's a good thing. You know what I mean? We're kind of in the age of people wanting immediate satisfaction, but here's how it worked out by waiting, and we've got some really solid matches. Again, FTR versus the Young Bucks. This is one I could see dragging out some of our friends who don't watch too much AEW, who don't watch too much wrestling at all anymore. But because this is a match that can't be denied as a literal dream match, they will be tuned in. So good on AEW for delivering a great card. And we're not even done. We still got to talk about the main event.
We have to predict still.
Oh, yeah, we got to predict that match. Yes.
And I'm going Young Bucks. I'm going all in on the Young Bucks.
I'm going FTR. I will go against you because I don't expect the Young Bucks to win right now with Matt Jackson being injured. And like maybe that's their idea. Maybe that's what they did. They had Meltzer put out a fake story, you know what I mean? Or maybe not even had him put out a fake story. They told him something that wasn't totally true that he would then report on his podcast, or they wanted to go out to people and make people start to think maybe the Bucks won't win, because I'm people right now and saying I don't understand how Matt Jackson could be champion with a potential torn MCL. I don't see them doing that. So that's where I'm at an interesting road there. I just prefer FTR. They're my guys, so I'm picking them. Looking forward to the match. Like where everything's gone there, and it's definitely not the end of that feud. That's one that's gonna go for a while. And like I said before, you cut me off because you had to. We didn't predict, but the main event, the AEW World Championship match, Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston in an I Quit match. This one hasn't sold it for some people, a.k.a. our boy Joseph. He's not a huge Eddie Kingston guy, and I don't blame him for that. But as a fan of these guys and the style of wrestling that they produce, I am so excited for this one.
Yeah.
I cannot even deny it. The fact that I expect this to be the bloodiest, most crazy match in AEW's history since the one with Jon Moxley and Kenny has me excited every time I really start to think about this one.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to top Moxley versus Omega, but it might, man. I mean, it's a night quit match with Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. You have to go in there expecting. They said they weren't going to do these, like, crazy-ass matches, like, all the time. And it's been a long-ass time, I feel like, since we've had one of them. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say death match. Like, yeah, lights out. Because I don't want to say death match because it's not a death match.
Borderline.
Yeah, it's a borderline death match. And, like, we might get that here for sure. Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley, man, it's going to be insane. If I have to pick, it's going to be John. Mm-hmm. It's going to be Moxley. It seems obvious. Like,
but what isn't great, obvious is how you make Eddie Kingston say, I quit. That is that is where they will have me very much, like, on the edge of my seat throughout this match, wondering how are you going to get out of this, because Kingston talking about his mother, talking about doing all of this stuff for his family. He's a legit, like, badass guy from New York City. Like, you take that type of shit seriously when you're saying stuff like that. So for him to go into this match having to say, I quit, I don't know how they make it happen. That's where I think they're going to get just as deathmatchy, if not more, because this is obviously the end of the night, the end of the show. Shit is going to get nuts, and I almost expect it to get nuts afterwards too, because they've been talking about a new debut. Who knows if that person comes at the end of the show? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So, but nonetheless, the match itself is going to have enough to make people be buzzing after this. And that's where making it an I Quit match does so much more to it for me. It almost explains a little bit of why they did the match on TV earlier too, because, you know, get it out of the way in a regular setting. People get that. Okay, now we have a reason to do a brutal match, and that's where people will really get something from these two guys. And that's what it'll be. It's going to be a train wreck. It's going to get crazy, and I expect Moxley to retain, but I expect enough other interesting stuff to happen within the titles and the situation in AEW that it's not going to matter. It's going to be a great show. So
yeah. Absolutely agree.
The world title match has me excited. Obviously, everything on the card has me excited. I'm glad they didn't have to resort to another casino match to try and build a number one contender. Instead, we had the tournament establish that. I like the variety there. Then we can go back to casino stuff next time if we have to. Overall, though, I'm excited for this card. One thing we've touched on a little bit but didn't really get to expand on it or give a prediction on it is Who do you think will be the surprise element to this show? And maybe nobody, but the way that they've teased the show with commercials talking about new debuts and all these new faces
Yeah,
in
they
AEW.
really have been shoving it down our throat, but honestly, I have no idea, and I kind of like that. I have no clue. If there is somebody, like, I hope it's good because Matt Sydal was on my radar because I was like, when Evolve ended, I was like, I don't think WWE's gonna want him because they already did the Evan Bourne thing, and they probably don't want him unless NXT wanted him, and so I like that's one person who I was thinking about, but like. Now that he's signed, I don't know. Like, there's no like huge name like that's free. I would guess Brock Lesnar, but
We don't need to go down that road again.
I'm trying to think. I really don't know.
Maybe Tessa. That's one that I think
Tessa
could be potential, but they've done enough with the women's division that I don't feel like they need Tessa as badly. I mean, they will always need Tessa until they have Tessa, but it's not as a drastic of a need as it previously was. I would still love to see her pop up, but I guess more so I'm saying because of the way the storylines have been built up, I don't necessarily see that being the situation. But yeah, I'm with you in terms of I don't necessarily know because there's not a whole lot of free agents out there. Maybe this is where we get that New Japan relationship where one or two of those guys happen to come in. I'm not necessarily hedging a lot of bets on that one. I wouldn't say that there's a guarantee, especially with COVID-19, and can people even get over here from another country, or who is here from there that would be able to work. I mean, maybe there's an Impact Wrestling relationship that starts up where we see the club join. I mean, there could be some interesting things that could happen thanks to the fact that they do this NWA relationship. So I don't know, and I don't expect a whole lot, but because they have pushed it kind of heavy, it wouldn't surprise me if it was something crazy. But I'm not going to put a whole lot of thought into who that may or may not be. But do you think that whoever it is going to be directly involved with Team Taz and what he's got going on? Or do you think that might be a whole other surprise in it of itself, too?
I think it'll be a whole other thing.
Me too. I do kind of think it's going to come after the Cody versus Darby thing. I think that would make a lot of sense to get Cody involved in his next feud and then maybe go back to Ricky Starks versus Darby for a little bit as well. So overall, though, they have a really great card lined up for tomorrow night. I'm so excited for it. Let's go ahead and quickly just run through our predictions again. I'll go through each match real quick. We got Serena Deeb versus Allison Kay for the Women's Championship, NWA Women's Championship. Who you got? Deeb, I got Deeb as well. We got Orange Cassidy versus John Silver.
Cassidy.
Sammy G versus Matt Hardy.
Matt Hardy.
I got Sammy G in this one, so that's our first split one. Got Jericho versus MJF.
MJF.
Both going MJF on that one. The AEW Women's Championship, Hikaru Shida defending against Nyla.
Hikaru Shida.
Nyla I got on this one. We got the Eliminator Tournament Finals, Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page. Who you got on that one?
Hangman Page.
I'm with you there. We got to cheer our boy on with some cowboy shit. And then the TNT title, Cody Rhodes defending against Darby Allin. Who's picking up the victory?
I said Darby, but I now want to change it, but I'm going to stick with it, Darby.
Stick with it, brother. I convinced you the other way. I got a hard argument for Cody, but I think it's going to be a great match regardless. And even if Darby loses here, I don't think it damages him too bad.
No.
The tag team title match, FTR defending against the Young Bucks.
Young Bucks.
Good deal. I'm picking FTR, and that's why I say it's a good deal, because we got some split ones on this card, and that means it's a great card they've put together.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be able to just predict everyone. That's what makes it fun. And the main event, though, kind of predictable. Jon Moxley defending against Eddie Kingston. Both leaning Moxley in this one, yeah?
Yeah, Moxley.
Sounds
it's gotta
good.
Be.
If you guys are tuned in with us, if you are listening later on Spotify, iTunes, any way you consume your podcast, go ahead and tweet us some of your predictions. We would love to hear them. Always love hearing about stuff like that. Communicate and let us know if you think one of our predictions is way off the wall and definitely not going to happen. To hear that too, or would love to hear one of your off the wall predictions that you think might happen. AJ, go ahead, let them know where they can find you on social media.
You can follow me on Twitter at Big Match AJ, and you can follow me on Instagram at AJ the Fitzy.
And as always, you can follow the podcast on Facebook at facebook.com/AllElitePod. We are on YouTube at youtube.com/AllElitePodcast. If you're watching us there, make sure you smash that subscribe button, brother. You can also find us on Twitter at All Elite Podcast. We're on Instagram at All Elite Everything. You can find me on Instagram at Andrew Kazir and on Twitter at Upstate Andrew. Thank you guys for continuing to support the show. We will be back tomorrow night directly after AEW